Welcome to the Mint Door Podcast with Dr. Karen Tyndall and Dr. Laura Schwint.
Well, hello, Mint Door listeners. Today is just an incredible special day because we're bringing two guests back for part 2 of a podcast. So today we have Strengths Savvy, the duo here with us, Valerie Burnett and, sorry, I mixed up your names. Burnett and
Valerie, we always talk about our business relationship as a marriage. I'm glad you're taking my name.
Oh my gosh, so sorry.
No worries.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And you guys have some special stuff in store for us with Strengths and kind of taking it to Strengths 2.0 today on today's podcast. So let's take it away. What do we got going on?
Okay, well, we're going to ask a few questions to get started. And we have some predictions based on your strengths. We're not going to guarantee we're going to be right, but we have some predictions. So we're going to ask the two of you the question about your partnership, and then we'd like you to tell us what you think. So the first one is, which of you is more motivated to get moving on to-dos to get those tasks crossed off the list?
Karen.
Is it me? Okay, me. I do like a list.
Our prediction.
Yes.
And the reason that we predicted that it would be Karen is that Karen has high responsibility. That's her number 3. And she also, the two of you, and we'll see as we go through this, are similar in many ways, but her achiever is just a little bit higher and her activator is a little bit higher. And so all those things together, and it was interesting that there was just a little confusion. You weren't 100% sure because you probably both have this in a decent measure, but Karen's was just a little bit higher, and that was our prediction. So yay, we got the first one right, Valerie.
Okay, next question. I'm gonna read this one out. So which of you is more likely to go with the flow, wing it, or just be in the moment?
It's you.
Me.
It's a Laura.
And we said
Laura.
Now, the reason that we spoke to that was that you have high adaptability and Karen actually has adaptability a bit low. So this is one that you guys sort of have a little bit of a distinction. Yours is it's number 8 for you, Laura, and it's 25 for Karen. So you're going to be more likely to be the one who's just like, hey, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll get there. It's all good. Que sera, sera kind of thing. And she may not be as quick to be like, yeah, whatever, so that speaks to the adaptability piece.
And also I'll add to that Karen has a little bit higher discipline and higher consistency. And those are a little bit more of a proclivity for structure and wanting to have things in their place. And so again, your strengths aren't terribly different in many regards, but because of that differential, we thought that it would be Laura. Okay, here's the next one. So far, we're doing good, Val. Which one of you has a higher propensity to consider her faith when making a decision?
You. I would say me.
Okay. And so our prediction was Laura. And Laura has high connectedness and high belief. So connectedness is kind of a belief that in sort of things beyond the tangible, things that could be described as possibly spiritual. And belief is a strong sense of values, like your decisions and things come from a very strong sense of values. And when we see both of those in close proximity, sometimes that is emblematic of a faith that is directing and grounding for that person's life. So that's why we thought that.
Yeah.
And you have high connectedness too, Karen, but your belief was a little lower. So we thought that would be more likely to be Laura.
This is fun.
Okay, next question. So which of you has an easier time coming up with just the right words or would be considered more of a wordsmith?
That would be Karen.
I love the reaction. Yes.
How do you tell that one?
Well,
You have very high communication. Go ahead, Valerie.
yeah,
Sorry.
your communication is super high. It's number 4. And those are people who are typically just brilliant with words. They're either great writers, speakers, songwriters. They could be great presenters. They just love words and they can bring them to life. They usually are great storytellers. They always have a story for something. And a lot of times they say, you know, that they just love to talk. They love that, you know, they're great conversationalists. So somebody who really loves to write, or, you know, just loves the written word, the spoken word. And since that was high for you, that we kind of had a guess that was sort of a thing for you. So were we right? You like to write?
I'm always the one to be crafting an email.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Excellent.
Okay. And this is our final one. Which of you has more of a deep love and appreciation of history and or what happened in the past?
That's got to be Karen. Doesn't it?
I would have said me if I was going to guess. Yeah, I would say me, but let's see.
Our guess was
None
none
of
of the above. So we didn't get it. We didn't get 100%, Valerie, but it was a trick question.
It was a trick
Context.
question.
Context is the strength, that looking in the rear view mirror strength, really appreciating what's happened in the past and using it to inform the future. And out of 34, Karen, it's your number 33, and Laura, it's your number 34. So I guess Karen, it would be you, but like by
a smidge, like a smidge. But essentially, you guys are not ones to dwell on the past. You're not going to be really looking backward to inform the future. Context, you know, they love history, and they have to kind of understand how it all, you know, what brought us to this moment. And we don't repeat those mistakes because we did this, this, and this, and this, and this, and before. And they can tell you everything that happened, you know, 200 years ago. Like, that wouldn't be something I would imagine would be of any concern to you guys. Like, that is not something that's on your radar. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I would say
100%.
so. I like reading historical fiction, but I probably don't use the history of things very much in my life.
Oh, interesting. Interesting, though, that you like to read historical fiction, though. I have to tell you, my context is kind of in the same zone as the two of you. I cannot, like, I almost get agitated when my husband loves history, is very high context. When he talks about it, I'm just like, please, like, could we talk about anything else? Like, I can't even tolerate it, which is bad.
Yeah, I think I like it because it's a true story, or it's based on true. So I know that it actually happened. And then I'm intrigued by stories that are true, I think. So I think that's
interesting.
Ooh,
I smell a little responsibility and communication there too. Like, you know, that things that are truths are probably very attractive to you. And then communication, love stories. Yeah. So we'll move right on to the 6 that you share. We'll start with futuristic because that's obviously an opposite to context. And Karen has this as number 2. And Laura has this as her number 7. So these are folks that love to look forward. They love to look down the road, tend to have a vision about where they want to go, and are planning for the future in most things. So does that sound like something that the two of you tend to focus on the future?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Usually visionaries is what a lot of times how they are, you know, dubbed, you know, because they love possibilities. You know, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? You know, so that doesn't surprise us that you guys are forward thinking. Like, all the things you do seem very avant-garde or innovative and things like that. They love
dream big.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Is we have all these great ideas of what we want to do in the future. So
yeah, that's exactly it. They're dream. A lot of times they say it's kind of a dreamer kind of thing because they're looking ahead. It's something that hasn't happened yet that this could be, right? So that sounds just like you.
It's really cool too, because and I think this is where partnership really blossoms, is because sometimes if you were on your own and you had this vision or this dream, you might talk yourself out of it. But when you partnered with someone that has that futuristic strength as well, they're like, yeah, that's totally possible. Let's do it, you know? And so I think that's cool.
That's cool.
I have this wonderful former philosophy professor that I follow, which I noticed that Laura follows him too. But he always talks about how partnership gives you courage. And it's sort of like when you think of something and you think of how daunting it will be to tackle all those pieces yourself, that partner may be able to pick up some of the pieces that are more challenging for you. So it does give you courage, because you know that if you flag at some point, your partner's there to lift up, which is really great. And in that sense, Valerie, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say,
Go ahead,
one
Val.
last thing is that futuristic, they do get energized by being around other people who have that. It's sort of like ideation is the same way, that they get fed by that, people who have it as well. So that's probably one of the nice synergies with the two of you, I would think. Another thing that you guys both share is empathy. So that's number 2 for Laura. It's number 6 for Karen. These are people with very high emotional intelligence. They basically can understand how somebody feels immediately, put themselves in someone else's shoes without even a second, like could finish someone else's sentence before they do even, right? Because they're the people who they have this deep intuitiveness. They're usually very sensitive. They're very compassionate, usually the soft shoulder to land on type people. But it's all about understanding, right? And people are desperate for understanding. So that's why I think they're drawn to people with empathy. Typically, they're very nurturing people as well. But the idea is that it's not that you agree with the other person or condone what they're doing or would do the same thing, but you understand. You're not judgmental. You're like, I can feel what you're feeling. I feel your pain. I love the sort of definition as your pain in my heart. And I see that in both of you. So that didn't surprise me whatsoever that both of you have that super high. So does that all resonate? Does that sound like you?
Yeah, I would say we always like to describe ourselves as like what we do is heart-centered. And that's where it does come from, is that we understand.
That's a big
piece going through.
Yeah, I absolutely. That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay, next we'll pop to strategic, which is Karen's number 1 and Laura's number 4. And that is a quickness of thinking, where when there's a goal, the mind immediately starts charting the paths to the goal. So it'd be very interesting to hear how that, if you two have a lot of agreement on your ways to the goal, or if there's, if every now and again you may not agree on how to get to the goal. Like, because I have high strategic as well. Mine's number 2. And so my brain immediately goes in those places, figuring out where the roadblocks are and things like that. But I wonder if you're paired with somebody who also is like, that's their way of thinking, if you have the sameness of it, or if you see this in yourselves, and if there is sometimes disagreement on how to get there. Pitching it over to get your response.
It's interesting. And I'm speaking from my perspective, so you can obviously give me yours, but I don't feel like we disagree very much. And I think that relates to our empathy, because when one of us maybe has a different idea of strategically how we want to get there, or we empathize with that person's idea and the fact that that's important to them. And so I think we, instead of saying no, but we always say and what if, and then we kind of come to a conclusion of what's the route we want to take right now, and what's the next step? What is the next step? So I guess
I would agree. I would agree with you that it's a double benefit, because we're both seeing how to get somewhere. And if there's a difference in how we do it, then typically it's a combination of both that comes out, rather than one person being, this is my way. But none of us are rigid and stick to. So it's always it's a collaboration. But yeah, I mean, when I see strategic as my number 1, is just so within me. It's just 100% what I would have chosen probably as my number 1. And even when I was doing my training to be a coach and doing my certification for the International Coach Federation, and I had a mentor who didn't know me but had listened to recordings of me coaching, and she just said, can I give you some feedback? And I was like, yes. And she just said, you just have a knack for overseeing really complicated scenarios and situations where there's so much going on, but you're somehow able to bring it all together and simplify it for the person you're coaching with. So give me a complex situation and I love solving it. It's like a puzzle. How would you do it?
Yeah.
That's and strategics see patterns too.
Mhm.
And so that's probably among the reasons, because if there's a lot of things going on, you're probably able to see the thread that goes through that thing and help the person really see what's at the heart of it or what's causing it.
But I think it's
Very
beneficial
interesting.
for two of us to be that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's brilliant that you each bring a different perspective to the party. You know, your brains are operating in the same sort of way where you sort immediately, right? And your brain is going very fast from point A to point Z, you know, but the two of you are doing it simultaneously and possibly in different ways. How beautiful is that? Because then you can bring the best of both worlds, right? So I love that idea. Sometimes strategic people, they think so fast that they have to like explain their thought process just to others around them because they're going so fast. And people are like, how did you get there? Like, I'm still back at A. How did you get to Z so fast? So do you ever have that come up where you have to kind of explain your thought process to each other, or because you're both strategic, you just kind of figure it out?
I think we
We just
figure it
figure it
out.
out.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Sometimes I think we may preface a thought process because we'll be like, okay, let me tell you why I got there. You know, we might do that because and then we'll be like, oh yeah, right, you know. So I think sometimes we've been used to in our lives having to catch other people up. So maybe I think we do preface it sometimes with each other, but I don't think we need to.
No,
Right. You probably don't need to.
Don't need to. It's such a, how beautiful is that you're not partnered with somebody who's like can't catch up and can't keep up, right? You have someone who's got a brain that's working just as fast as yours.
Yeah. I think and I'm thinking of a couple of circumstances that have happened where a client has asked us for something and we need to create something for them and we need to do it quick. And we've turned out some huge things in the course of a day by us just being like, right, okay, leave this with us. Tick, 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 it's done. And then people are like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? We just worked, we did it.
It's part of your secret sauce. It really is. It's a beautiful, beautiful partnership you have.
That is amazing. That's amazing. You can do it so quickly too.
That's awesome.
It is really interesting how similar your lineups are. Like there are very few things that are on opposite ends. You know, usually you're just a few away in all the strengths. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, we decided you're sisters from another mister for sure. Like there's, you know, sort of the same DNA going on. It's pretty quite remarkable. But one of the other ones that you have very similar is developer. So Laura has it number 9, Karen has it number 8. And again, this is one of those that's very nurturing, wants to see people be their best. I mean, it's perfect for what your mission is with the Mentor. A developer is all about, I hate wasted potential. I want to see you live your best life. I want to see, they see the best in people. They want to help people be their best. They're ones that are going to nurture people, cheerlead them, mentor them, coach them. They'll be very patient with people who are inexperienced, and they'll just want to hold their hand and cheer them on. So I know enough about the both of you to say, well, this is you in spades. It's just like the empathy thing. I was like, well, of course that's on their top 10. Why wouldn't it be, So does this one resonate with you too? I mean, it's perfect for what the type of work you do for sure.
Yeah. And that brings up a question, and I'd love your insight on this, because as you're saying that, it makes me think to situations in my past where maybe someone didn't believe in me, and so that's why I always want to believe in somebody. So is it that was strength was innate in me, or was that because of something that happened to me when I was young? I mean, what do you think?
I personally think that it's the classic nature nurture issue. And I think that for me, I think that as a mom of 4 daughters, I think that nature is a big percentage of it. Like we are who we are. When I look at my children, I'd say probably 75 to 80% is how they came. And then the other part is what troubles they ran into, what challenges they faced, and that sort of thing. Where I'm sorry, I think I got that up backwards. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I'm getting confused. But the nurture piece is smaller. like how they come is so innate, and it is just who they are. But then, parents have an impact, of course. And so probably the same is like your developer was in you, but the fact, if you weren't believed in, and as a high empathy, how that felt, you feel deeply, you're like, I am not going to do that. So you grew up in reaction to that stimulus. And so you responded in a way that you would have liked other people to respond to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Even though my words were all crazy around it.
No, yeah. No,
yeah, and and Gallup talks about, pouring into these talents, right, to make them stronger and brighter. So your experiences, your knowledge, whatever things that you've been through in your life, all of that is going to just feed that. So you had that innately anyway. It aligns with your empathy as well. So your empathy, probably even more so than the developer, was like, oh, I didn't have that. I want to have other people have that, right? So the two of them working together are probably what's, made that even grow even stronger, is my point. So I think it's both,
And I just have a point to make. I pity the fool that didn't believe in Dr. Laura, is all I have to say.
What was wrong with
wrong
them?
with them?
Can I send him your way? Can you give him a little lecture?
Obviously, problem there. Yeah.
Oh, you're
not you, Laura. It was them. It was absolutely them.
Thank you. You're sweet.
So, next up is positivity, and Laura has this 3 and Karen has this 7. So you two must not have very many bad days, is all I have to say. Positivities like to look on the bright side. They like to walk on the sunny side of the street. Doesn't mean that there's not upset, doesn't mean that there's not a bad day, probably, but people with high positivity don't like to live there. And so you are probably just very easy at cheering each other up. If there's some hiccup that happened, you're probably going to help the other one see the bright side and reframe and pull them out of it. Do you have any stories or examples about that?
I think, yes, we are both positive people. On the very odd occasion that something happens and that we're both not positive about it, then it's kind of, I think we go away, think about it, a process on our own, and then by the time we come back, we then process together, and then we're back to positivity again, and seeing that if something didn't quite go the way we wanted it to, an opportunity, just say, for example, that was one of them, then there's a reason why, or we're always finding the benefit to why what happened. Like there's a silver lining to everything, and if you're not learning it for this reason, then there's a different reason.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that's great.
That's classic positivity, right? They're always looking for, what's great about this? How can we turn this around? They won't live in that sad, dark place. They'll turn it around as soon as they can, So I just think it's amazing, because the two of you must have a very joyful relationship, a very joyful business. And what a gift is that? That's such a blessing to have somebody that you can walk your journey with who has that. So I think that that's wonderful. And it's interesting to me that you work with trauma and positivity. You wouldn't think, right, that someone who's an expert in trauma, that positivity would necessarily be a natural fit, but it's actually even more of a blessing, because you can bring the brightness, you can bring people out of that and give them hope. So I think that that's part of your gift as well, is that positivity piece.
Yeah, I think we do use a lot of that with our clients, for sure, because that and futuristic, looking forward, and really trying to learn what you can from a situation and then apply it to something forward in life. And I think that's the beauty, because sometimes our clients help us learn lessons as well. They're like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. And so I think it fosters and boosts our positivity when we see the light bulbs go off for them too. So
I love that. I love the thought, if you don't, like, you either win or you learn, like, and so in both cases you win, because and some lessons are painful. It may be a painful win, right. But learning has such value to it. And I would imagine that you two help people to see how those lessons, although painful, can have value and help in their future. So awesome. Very good. Valerie, you want to pull up the last one?
Well, the next one is connectedness. So, Karen has this one, or Laura has this one number 1, and Karen has it number 9. And again, these are people who believe that there are no, coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. They see the connections between all of us. We're all one. So they're very, very cognizant of any kind of any kind of what's the word? I just lost it. Consequence. Thank you. Any kind of consequence that they might create, the ripple effects. That's what they're all about. They want to be very careful with what they put out in the world, what they do, because everything that they do, they know impacts down the line, makes an impact down the line. So again, not surprising that is part of your magic. You get to see where all the pieces come together, how the moving forward to the future, the hope for the future, how this worked for this reason, this can help you with that, this lesson was because you needed to learn this, all of that, I imagine, is part of your work, and having that connectedness piece really helps with that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that, and then should we talk a little bit quickly about the unique ones that you don't share?
Yeah, that would be cool.
A little bit.
So I'll start with how about if I read Laura's and you read Karen's, just so we can split them up. So Laura has intellection high. And one of the things that you said, Karen, that you go off and you sort of process on your own. Laura having intellection number 5. Says to us that she needs time for internal processing, just whether it's processing something negative, positive, whatever. People with high intellection are more or less our philosophers. There are people who need to have time alone to internally process. And yours is not, yours is kind of mid-range. Karen, you're number 21. So I would say that Laura probably has a higher need to kind of go off on her own and think through things. Does that sound right? Does that sound that you need that in that time?
It's so clever. It's like
I know, right?
It's like a what?
It's magic. It's like peeling back the
right.
But yeah.
And do you give yourself dedicated time to do that? Some people who are intellectuals will literally write it into their calendars, where this is my alone with my thoughts time. Do you do things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's my morning is sacred. And when I don't have that morning, the day is just different. And so the morning is sacred. And then there's I'm an empty nester somewhat now, so there's different times of the day that I can draw into it. But so and I think that we talk about our ideal schedule a lot, and I'm always the one saying I need a creative day. I need a creative day.
Yeah,
right, because that internal world of yours is very powerful, and it probably fuels you. And so you need to feed that. You need to feed that time to have that internal processing going on. So so lots going on mentally. Your next one is input. Number 6, and that one is also in the thinking zone, and we'll talk about the domains momentarily. But these are folks that like to research a lot. They like to, if you get on the computer, sometimes you'll kind of go down different rabbit holes and really like learn a lot through there. Let me see where your learner is. It's number 11. So learner, input, and intellection are often found when they're high. They tend to be high together, and so probably you like to learn a lot. When you're making a decision, you might need a lot of input, whether it's your own research or just asking people what they think about things. That's another way things show up for inputs. But it is like that gathering of information. People with high input tend to know a lot of things, possibly trivia things, can recollect it really quickly. Like there's just these internal folders in your head that probably everybody who's very good at Jeopardy has high input. So so those are some of the ways input shows up. But I see you smiling and nodding, so I'm guessing that sounds right to you. Yes.
Do you archive things, Laura? Do you have notebooks or files, or it could be electronic, physical, mental? Yeah.
All of it. Queen of the notebook. Queen of the photos on my phone. Queen of Yeah. And Karen probably rolls her eyes because she'll be talking. I'll be like, oh, I heard something the other day and I'm going through my files.
Yes, that's exactly what input does. That's a classic input right there.
And
Yeah,
it's useful though,
exactly.
because you're like, I have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
won't have written something down that I've heard. I just rely on the fact that I think I'm going to remember it, but you have it, so you can get back to that point.
Right. That's a classic input move right there.
Right there. There's your input. And again, those three together are a very powerful trio, and you do have them all in your top 11. Adaptability, we've already talked to, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but that's just going with the flow, rolling with the punches. Sometimes people with high adaptability, like a deadline that gets them moving a little more, but otherwise, like if somebody is there needing you or wanting to talk to you, you'll just roll with that. You'll just kind of go with whatever it is. And so, people with adaptability do, sometimes, push back, but if they see that it's a lost cause, then they're just going to roll with it. I always like to say high adaptabilities can breed in captivity. It's like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay. I'm going to be okay with it.
Well, I mean, but one of the brilliant things I think about adaptability is that they're not ruffled by conflict. They can just, if there's an obstacle, if there's a crisis, if there's craziness, they will just be like, okay, it's all good. We'll figure it out. They'll just flow right around it like a rock, like water going around a rock, right? So you're wonderful. Like you're doing trauma work, right? You're wonderful in a crisis. You can be calm in the storm. You can bring that cool head. Because adaptability is just like, it's okay. We'll figure out a way, it's all good. So that can be a very powerful talent to have, especially in your line of work.
People love working with high adaptabilities.
Yeah.
They just, they easily roll with things. And then last in your unique ones is belief, which we already mentioned, and that is having that set of values that is just core and helps drive all of your decisions. So that, very unshakable. Like when you have people with high belief, nobody's going to come in and say, oh, hey, here's the flavor of the week, like let's try these values. That's not going to work for somebody with high belief. So you're really strong and solid in your values.
Mm-hmm. Well, you even referenced it when you said your mornings are sacred. I mean, those were your words, right? So that's something that you value, that self-care. You value that time that you need for your own reflection, your own time to ponder, your time to pray, everything those things that are so meaningful to you, you're not willing to budge on those. You be you over there. That's all good. I'm adaptable. That's okay. Yeah, you be you, but this is me. And I'm
Don't bug me in the morning.
Yeah. Talk to you in the afternoon. It's all good, So
right.
That's the thing. You have that adaptability, flexible piece. So you have the both, which is it's a beautiful thing, that you have the best of both worlds. You can be
you probably balance because some people with high belief and low adaptability might be really stubborn. And having both of those things close together, they would balance each other out. You develop a way like when I'm not going to move and when I am going to move. So it's a nice balance.
Yeah. And then talking to Karen's unique ones, she has responsibility number 3. And Laura, you have this 14, so you have it pretty high as well. But those are folks who will not drop the ball for anything. And usually they get voluntold because they're the responsible, reliable, dependable one, right? I remember you were telling us a story at the Do Retreat about, the room mom. Like you didn't even know what a room mom was. You had just arrived in the country and you signed up for it right away because nobody else was, because that's what responsibilities do, They'll take on everything that, nobody else wants to do because it has to get done. And everybody knows you're going to do a great job and you're going to get it done right. So why not give it to her, right? So that's kind of a sticky thing with responsibility, is that they're so utterly dependable. They will, whatever they put their name to, they take like a psychological ownership of it. It has to be done right. It has to be done well. It will not be, halfway. We will get it done, So responsibilities sometimes do get overwhelmed. They do get over voluntold in a way. People put too much on them. Sometimes they take too much on themselves even because they're so capable. So I don't know, do you have the responsibilities to seize? I understand it because I have this one high as well, but do you have a hard time saying no? That's a typical thing for responsibility.
Yes, I would say I did. I have learned how to say no. that took a bit of time, but I have learned how to say no to things now. But I completely agree that I almost give myself the responsibility, and I give myself all these things to do, and then I'm just like, oh my goodness, why is there just so much to do? Well, I've taken it on.
Yeah.
That's why.
100%. But I know after I told that story about being the English mum in was kind of, it was 4th grade, I think, when I was voluntold to do that and be the ring mum. But this English girl can throw a Halloween party and a Christmas party in, I don't know, I would love to go back and see how I did it. I probably did it in a very English way.
But it was done, and it was done well.
It might not
Your arranger is pretty high too. Arranger is 16 for you, and so those are people that can throw a good party. You know, they can like take all those little pieces and make it work.
Laura, yours is very similar. Laura's is 15, so together we could throw an amazing party.
Exactly.
You could throw some parties.
Some movie pieces. You all are good with that, shuffling things around. Then, you know, also the thing though with responsibility is that it's hard for you probably to delegate unless you have real trust in that person. Luckily, you have that with your business partner. If you didn't, it would be a difficulty between you. I know in my life, you know, when I've had to manage people or lead people, sometimes I still took on too much because I didn't trust that they were going to do a good job or they were going to do it to my standards. And that's a mistake. They need to learn, you know, they need to do it their way. And so sometimes we struggle with, us who have responsibility, struggle with the delegating piece. We hate to be micromanaged because we have so much ability to do it ourselves. We can't stand for somebody to have their thumb on us. But at the same time, we can sometimes micromanage. So it's kind of a little tricky piece of responsibility because we do have very high work ethic and very high standards. And, you know, there's just that need to make sure that everything is done well and right, you know, that conscientiousness.
That makes a lot of sense because quite often I will think I'd rather just do that myself.
Yeah.
Because I know that it will get done how I want it to be done.
That's why she just says, I'll do the emails.
I was thinking about home actually. And then what I've learned, and this is a work in progress, but I've learned that when I've been away and I come home, my family tries so hard to get everything right for when I walk through the door. And
So nice.
I've learned that I should not come in and then start finding things that aren't quite right with what's been done.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful learning.
Yeah.
So I now make a huge effort. I'm not perfect, but I make a huge effort not to pick on things like I probably used to when I've been away.
Yeah. So
I didn't used to
your empathy. Yeah. Drop your empathy a little bit of a notch there and be like, oh, I just need to compliment them. I just need to encourage them because they'll be more likely to do more and work harder and try harder if I keep encouraging. Right.
Although I know yesterday when I was here in Denver, my husband sent me a text and just said, Kate has spent all day cleaning this house. She spent all day doing it. So she does an amazing job actually. She's big. She's a fantastic organizer at home. So
That's fantastic. That's such a nice thing.
I won't have anything to pick on when I get back. It'll be good.
Well,
that's wonderful.
We're taking up so much of your time, so we'll move it along. But we already talked about communication. That's number 4 for you. We won't go over that again. But relator is number 5. And I'm looking to see where 12 for Laura, so pretty high for you as well. And those are people who, you know, they form very deep relationships. They usually have a small inner circle, you know, so they know you really well, you know me really well, we friend for life. Once you're in my heart, you're always there. They can have a conversation with anyone, but they're not going to be best friends right away. They need to get to know them. They need to get to trust them. They're very authentic, very real people. Typically, they like to work with a small group of people to get things done. So they really enjoy that. And they would much rather, you know, have dinner with 4 friends that they know really well than go to a party with a room full of people that they've never met. So does that speak to both of you? Because I think that's kind of, you know, that's high for you as well, Laura, but for you, Karen, very high.
Yeah, they're wonderful collaborators.
Yeah, definitely. I see that. And even when we think about where we would choose to spend our time, if you said to Laura and I, you can go to a party with 100 dentists, or you could sit down to dinner with 5.
Yeah.
Pick the dinner with 5.
Right.
Every time, I would say.
Right. Yeah. And the opposite of that is woo. And usually that's kind of how we see it as you know, the foil to it. And it's number 30 for Laura, number 20 for Karen. So, you know, it makes sense that, you know, room full of people that you've never met before is not really your happy place. It makes a lot of sense.
We can do it.
Yes.
You can do it.
Absolutely do it. But it probably drains your energy. Yeah.
Or it drains us
It
pretty
drains us.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It drains your energy. It's not joyful. It doesn't, you know, the way to think about these is the ones that are at the top, your top chunk, that top 10 are the things you do with excellence, ease, energy, and enjoyment. So if you have all of those going on, typically you're in the top of your list, right? Things that don't give you that are usually the ones that are at the bottom. Right. So that's just a way to kind of look at it. You also have individualization. That's number 10. And looking at Laura, you have it number 17. So again, not too far off. And those are people who are very easy to customize. You know, they're happy to say one size does not fit all. We have to do this for this person and that for this person and this person. They're looking for the uniqueness in people. And they're usually very thoughtful because they see that. And they're usually great gift givers because they'll know that so-and-so, you know, really loves elephants, and you know, pink is her favorite color, and I just found this pink elephant, she'll love it, you know, I'll give her that for her birthday 5 months from now, you know. They're thinking ahead, they're thinking about others, they're other oriented. So does that one resonate with you, Karen?
Yeah, definitely. And then that's one of the pieces of the Mint Door that we're so passionate about, is really we customize everything. That I can't think there's anybody that's ever just come and just buy off the shelf, because it doesn't exist, because we are always thinking, what's their specific need?
Right, there's that individualization and space.
Yeah, that individualization is that customizing piece, and just seeing each person for the uniqueness that they bring and working to pull that out of them. So it's interesting gift.
Yeah, but interestingly, you also have consistency in number 12. So you have both, and I have it too. I have not met many people who have it both. So you and I can customize, but we also want fairness. We want people to be treated the same. We want that, you know, here's the rules and everybody can play by the rules. If you know what the rules are, then people know what the rules, and they can play right, you know, play nice in the sandbox. And so consistency kind of is an interesting, it usually is a foil to individualization, but you again have the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, that makes me laugh, because I got rather internally upset at a pickleball tournament that I entered. Seems so trivial, but it made a big deal to me when it was the first one we'd ever entered, and I read the rules, and you had to self-rank. And I ranked myself at a certain level because, yes, I could look down the checklist and I could do all of those things. And when we turned up, we were so outplayed by everybody else because they hadn't ranked themselves honestly. And that made me so inside. That was the biggest injustice, that why couldn't you follow the rules and just be honest about themselves? Anyway, I'm going back to a pickleball tournament this weekend for the second time, and I've had to follow their game of not being honest, and it's
it's hard, right? Because
because I see two things: both your consistency and your responsibility, because responsibilities are highly ethical. They're not going to fudge anything. And so there's the ethics piece, and then there's the doing what doing what you're told to do, or doing what you say you're going to do. But also just that, consistency, I just learned, used to be called fairness. That was the name of that strength. And they changed it, but it's that really wanting it to be fair, wanting everybody to do the right thing, and so that's really important. So I can see both of those at work in the pickleball example.
Yeah, who knew the pickleball world was so not
cutthroat?
It's a big world.
It's cutthroat. My goodness,
it is. It's vicious.
Okay, well, we are going to just real quick, I'm going to share my screen with you. We did a grid of the two of you and where you line up. So can you see that? Is it showing up okay?
Yeah.
So this kind of is how we take a look at all 34 when we do a team. We line them up according to their domains. Just quickly, so executing are the purples, and those are the folks who get things done. Influencing are the yellows, and those are folks who will get other people to do things. You know, they're the ones who get to speak for others and push things forward.
They inspire other people to change behaviors.
Yes, inspire. So then the blues are the relationship builders. Those are the folks who are other oriented. They're the glue that, you know, makes things happen and makes people get along and think about others. And then the greens are strategic thinking. They're very cerebral. They're in their heads. They're the ones who are doing all the visions and the strategy and the, you know, ideas and that sort of thing. So you can see how it breaks down that in the executing range, and the way this shows up is that the bold ones, the ones like right here, number 3 in the purple, is solid. So that means it's one of your top 5. And then the 10 is sort of like a little sunbeam there. That means it's in your top 10, like it's, you know, 6 through 10. And then if it's shaded in the gray, it means it's a lower one for you. So when we look at it as a whole, the two of you have 2 of your top 10 in the executing range. So that isn't not super strong for you guys, but you still are able to get things done because of things like the responsibility piece. So though, you know, you're able to do it because you have pieces that will work for you to get those things done. And then influencing, you have one little talent in influencing, which is not surprising. Most of your talents are not the big out loud, you know, in your face, you know, very, you know, live out loud is what we call them, you know, the type of thing. But what's interesting to me about this is what this whole thing came about as is the way they determined these domains is they looked at leaders and they asked the followers, what was it about the leader that made you follow them? So what these domains really prove is how you lead, how you naturally show up when you lead, right? So you guys aren't big out loud, you know, talkers and all of that. However, you influence people on a daily basis and in huge ways. So it's not that you can't influence, it's that you use your relationship building and your strategic thinking pieces to inspire, to influence. Does that make sense? Because I have maximizer number 1. It's a yellow. You would think I'm a big yellow person, but I lead with relationship building. I influence people with my relationship building skills, just like you guys do. So it's just something to know that even though you just have the one little top 10 and that, you know, that's the communication piece, it doesn't, you know, make it harder for you, or it doesn't hurt you in any way because you have all these other beautiful talents that push forward and allow you to do that same type of work of inspiring people. Your relationship building is clearly your strongest one with 11. You absolutely shine there, as we talked about, with all the positivity, the empathy, the developer. All of those pieces are those people-y ones to make you very blue. And then your strategic thinking, you've got quite a few of those. You've got the 6, so that's also very strong. So as you can see in your 34 report, Laura, it'll tell you that you lead with relationship building, that's the most powerful one for you. And then Karen, you lead with strategic thinking. But when we lined up both of yours, it was funny because Karen leads with the green, you know, with thinking, and Laura leads with relationship building. But the next domain that's highest for both of you is the swap. So you're a blue-green and you're a green-blue. And then both of you have purple and then yellow. So it's like, okay, you just have a little bit of a difference here, but then everything else is pretty much the same, you know? So again, you're very complementary.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that, you know, Gallup is, they just put down, and actually I'll hold up page 21, it tells this story, and that is what you lead with, and it reads left to right, and the width of the bars makes a difference. But even though Karen only has 2 in strategic thinking, and Laura has 4, Karen leads with strategic thinking and Laura leads with relationship building. So that it seems a little antithetical, but it's the fact that Karen has number 1 and 2 as strategic thinking that is likely the reason that it tipped in that direction. But you'll see that the Karens are the green and the blue are roughly the same width. So probably it's almost a toss-up which one of those is stronger. And even though Laura has more strategic thinking, she's got 3 of the top 5 in relationship building, and then two of the top 10. So her blue bar is a little wider. And so it's just a little more, Gallup had an easier time figuring out that one was in your first place. Is kind of how I look at that. But you two are so similar in many regards. Just the other strengths that you have besides the top ones, they're all like one or two apart for the most part. There's very few that aren't far apart. It makes a lot of sense that you two have a wonderful partnership. Do you have any questions about the domains or anything?
Anything?
No, I'm curious, and I love that you explained that. Thank you for saying that this is how you lead. This is, that's a great way to look at it. So I'm curious, if that's how we lead, are the people that are attracted to us inspired by leaders like that? And is that why, for instance, when I owned a dental practice, is that why certain people meshed in our office and other people didn't? They didn't identify with the way I lead.
I would say so. Yeah. I think it, yes, in big ways. I think that some of the times that, like some of the ways that we've talked about where some things are foils to other things. And one really easy one is somebody who is high activator versus somebody high deliberative. So the activator act, they first act, they think sort of along the way. And deliberatives want to think a lot first and then act. And so if you have those two energies in the same office, they're going to make each other a little bit crazy, because the activator is going to be really wanting to go forward. The deliberative is going to want to put the brakes on. And so if you are an activator and you're with an activator, it's like, this person really gets me, we like, they're not so slow. And you may attach negative labels to the people who aren't like you. And so that's why we feel like strengths is so valuable, because I will tell you that, and I mentioned it already, I'm a futuristic. I tend to look ahead. I'm kind of like the two of you. I have futuristic first, adaptability close second. My context is way at the end. And my husband is a context. And he was always talking about, on this day back in 1976, we moved back from Germany. I'm like, what are we having for dinner tonight? It's like I could not have any appreciation for it. And it drove me a little crazy until I saw his strengths. And then I'm like, he came this way, he was made this way, and this is a very valuable thing. I just don't particularly appreciate it. And maybe I might give it a little time to try to appreciate it, because I love him and I'm married to him. And so when I took that time, I've learned a few things, thankfully, and that's good for me. And I could never tell you why World War II started, but now he's told me probably half a dozen or a dozen times, and now I'm starting to get it. But because my mind shuts down when I hear history, I'm just like, that's how I am. So I'm attracted to people who are forward looking. And so we tend to be attracted to people who think the same, whose behaviors reflect how we naturally think, feel, and behave. And so if somebody is like you, they get you, and you behave in ways that are predictable to them. And so they're going to be drawn to you. Or as a high empathy, if you have what they need, they may be somebody who needs somebody who is understanding and caring and will take the time to sit with them. If you have what they need, or you think like them, that's going to be an attractive force for somebody. But if your behaviors and your natural ways you think, feel, and behave are opposite to how somebody else did, they may have that as it may repel them. And so those are some of the ways that we see these things playing out on teams or in offices and things like that. But once you get that understanding and you really think about that, all of these strengths are needed, they're all necessary, and they're all beautiful and valuable, then you're like, okay, maybe it's me that's not appreciating that. And maybe I could try a little harder to appreciate those things. And so those are some of the ways that those things can play out.
Yeah. And also, tapping into somebody who has what you don't have, who is an opposite to you, if you can look at that and say, oh gosh, I hate doing this, this, and this, and this, I'll let them do it. That's great. Then they love doing that, or, we work differently. Okay. So we just have to make an agreement on how we work. And that's the thing that I think what happens is when you have people who kind of, do this, if they could take a step back and have an honest conversation and be like, okay, I need this, you need this, let's do this. And then you can work together. And that's also what strengths allows people to do, is give them that vocabulary from which to speak from that, enables you to articulate what you want to say or how you feel. But in your personal, every day, do you divvy up some of the responsibilities naturally? Or is there any kind of conflict at all that comes up between the two of you, being that you're so compatible? I'm thinking that this is a very easy, easy breezy, joyful kind of, partnership. I wouldn't think that there wouldn't be a lot of conflict between the two of you, but do you have some things that you each naturally toward to contribute to the party?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Laura is definitely our tech person. Mm-hmm. Anything tech sends me like, it overwhelms me, the idea of it. I learned how to use Google Drive and Google Docs, and that was a big success in my life. I remember there was a time I couldn't get it. But I've learned.
I can't either, by the way. I'm not worthy, because at any time, like, I see a Google Doc, I break out in hives. So I'm really glad to hear it's doable.
It's doable. It is doable. It took me a while. My husband spent a lot of time teaching me repeatedly. But yeah, we definitely kind of look at things and just can easily say, I'll take that, you do that, da, da, da. And it's just a natural way that we kind of share the workload, isn't it? Who does what?
And Laura, I feel like you were going to say something when we were talking about the offices and people not aligning, or people. What did we miss?
Yeah, I just think that probably the most successful group working together is one that has a bunch of strengths that understand each other. And it just makes me think about, as our business grows, we might want to look for people with other strengths, other gifts, so that we can really focus on the ones that we want to. And that could really open the door for a lot of people in how they think about, everyone thinks they want to be with people that are like them. But ultimately, you have the best, mix when it is a mix. But I think that you're so right that these strengths and the words, the way to articulate what's important to you, is the missing link for a lot of groups that work together, because they don't get it, and they just think that the other person's being stubborn, or the other person,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, Gallup has done a ton of research on this, and they are very clear that the highest performing teams are the ones that have a mixture of people with different risk tolerance, different thought processes, people, the teams that embrace differences, that, are just as committed to their personal life as they are to their work life, the ones who prioritize what's best for the organization and then move forward, and the ones that don't let conflict destroy them because they were focused on results. Those are the strongest teams, right? So the piece of that is, yes, we have to allow for other people to come to the party with what they have to bring, and respect it, and try to appreciate it, and try to compromise, and try to, be understanding and tolerant of each other. That's really important, because those different perspectives do make us stronger as a whole. But it's, to your point, is when there's that lack of communication, lack of respect, lack of tolerance, lack of, empathy, that we get hung up. But yes,
well, it's interesting. One of the things that you said, Laura, and that is that understanding. Speaking of Google, and this is something that Valerie and I have worked into some of the sessions that we do. Google did something called the Aristotle Project, and they looked at 180 of their teams, and they were trying to figure out what made a team successful. And the piece that they found was something they called psychological safety. And so those were not the teams that just everybody was samey. They were not the teams that, everything just went so happy because there was no conflict. They were teams that mixed it up a lot. They spoke their truths, they spoke their minds, but they had respect, and they understood one another. and they had each other's back. If there was, if somebody fell down on the job, or, something happened in their personal life or whatever, those other team members would come in and help lift them up. And so that psychological safety was the key. So they didn't have, now it's lovely that you two have so much in common. And so there's absolutely nothing's wrong with that. It's clearly is the keys to the kingdom of your success and how beautifully you work together. But it's not necessarily the case that only people that are similar would have a really wonderful situation. It's so funny because you two have a lot of similarities and you do really wonderfully together. Valerie and I have a lot of opposites and we do really wonderfully together. So we're seeing both those things at work here. But, when Valerie was moving, I took on more of the stuff. When I was consulting for a pharmaceutical company and things really intense were going on, Valerie took more of it. And so we would trade off and we would just lift each other and we would just be really understanding of each other. And that's why it works, because even though, and Valerie is very appreciative of my gifts and I'm very appreciative of her gifts. And we have a lot of really opposite things going on. I'm an influencer and I'm more thinky. And she's got that execution piece. That's my dead last, and my little bar on execution is like this. So, Valerie will, she'll gently and lovingly give me deadlines, and I will try to stick with them because I don't want to disappoint her. And so those are things that like we tend to be opposites, but ours really works too. So it's very interesting to see right here on this one little podcast. We have a partnership where there's a lot of similarities and a partnership where there's a lot of differences, and both can be beautiful. So it's just in what you do with them is really kind of the magic.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you guys do, bring more people into the fold, since you're on fire and you're doing all these wonderful things, you probably will have to add staff at some point. It may be uncomfortable because you've gotten to a place where you're so in sync with each other. And you think alike and you work alike, and those things are all copacetic. And then you bring some other folks into the mix, and maybe it might be a little rough, but maybe the consistency in you, Karen, can lay down the law. Like, here are the rules. This is what our expectations are. I think that's the key, is people have to understand what you expect. It has to be very clear. And it also has to be that they have to understand what they are supposed to contribute, like what is expected of them. And if you make the time to do that and check in with people and not assume, and make sure that you're letting them understand your thought process, so when you bring other people into the fold, yes, it would be great to bring in some influencers. Maybe you're already doing that, but maybe there are other ways you could be influencing, your community and your demographic, with somebody who
or just getting your word out. Sometimes influencers are good at getting the word out. If that's, I don't know if that's something you struggle with, but influencers are really good at that.
Right. So you may want that piece, you may want to bring some of that in, or some, crackerjack, executors, so that you can take that off of your plate. Karen, you don't need to do all that, like lessen the load a little bit. But again, I would just say, if that happens, to be careful, to, lay things down, to start as you want to go, right? From the very beginning, this is how we operate. This is how we've been operating. This is the sort of way we like to work. I would just lay things out, and really, because if you got that communication piece anyway, built in with Karen there, that would be helpful, because you'll need that to kind of smooth the rough edges and make sure that they don't upset your beautiful little idyllic world at the moment, right? It's almost like, I don't want to add anybody. We're very happy together. It's all good,
Thought goes through my mind.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it does. But it may be untenable at some point where you have to, and it's just a matter of choosing wisely. And it's a matter of, yes, finding some opposites would probably behoove you and be good, and help you grow and bring another perspective to the party. But it also could make you a little crazy too. So I would just be prepared, would be my advice on that. Leanne, what would you do? What would you say as a closing thought?
I don't know. I want to hear from Karen and Laura. That's what do you all think? What do you all think, sort of just of how much your strengths are like, or just your thoughts on just what we've talked about today, and any questions you might have?
Yeah, well, super enlightening, because again, it's just something that we sort of innately know. But when you bring words to it and you bring data to it and you bring, you know, and you put us together and you compare us like that, it's really eye-opening and affirming that we are listening to our strengths and we are being true to our strengths. And it also lets me know that, you know, if there are moments when either of us is prickly, that maybe there's something that we need to look at as to why that's going on, you know, and to look at these strengths and say, oh, hey, you know, communicator, let's communicate about this. And
Well, one of the things I found interesting about your strengths too that we haven't mentioned is the low end harmony. So Laura, yours is number 31 and Karen's is number 24. And given how harmonious the two of you are, I would have thought that it would be higher. But I have low harmony too, and I like to say I love peace, but I'm not afraid to knock a few heads to get there if that's what it takes. And so I think that possibly your harmonious partnership may be due to the fact that you two just are so aligned on so many things so naturally, and that you do have empathy for one another. You communicate well. You talk through things. I'll let you tell us about it rather than me guessing. But like it was interesting to me because I thought, oh, I got to look where their harmony is. Oh, it's a little lower than I would expect.
Yeah, which was surprising. But yeah, tell us, like, what do you think makes it work for you guys? You know, what is it that's the secret behind your success? How are these strengths showing up for you as a partnership?
Well, we have a rule that we're friends first, business partners second. And that's how we went into this whole thing at the very beginning. And I think because of that, we are honest with each other, always. No, we don't hide anything. Everything's out there and honest. And I think we're not hiding anything. And I think that complete open view and clarity that and trust that I have complete trust. And I think, you know, Laura hopefully trusts me back. And, you know, like you said, one of us can go away and the other one can look after it all. And then the other one can go away and the other one can look after it all. And there is the complete trust in that. I'm not sure I'd be very good at putting a podcast together to edit it, but, you know, I'm learning. And I can now send out an email newsletter. So there's
there you go.
I do write some emails. I do.
But why do you need to? She can do it so well and she loves it. Let her do it.
I'm not doing it. It's the task I'll always pick first. I'm like, right, emails, let me write some replies.
I know. Okay. Yeah, I think it's nice because I think we recognize each other's strengths and allow that person to use them. And it feels good because you know, like sometimes in a work relationship, maybe you feel bad because you don't really want to do that task and you're hoping the other person, their responsibility, raises their hand and says, I'll do it, right? But for us, it's more, I know she likes that, so I don't even have to say, you know, when we're looking at our task list for the week, I don't even have to say or, you know, get quiet when around the emails. She just says, I'll do the emails. I'm like,
I love it. I love
it. Right. Yeah. Your communication is on the lower end. Hers is on the higher end. So that is a very natural result of using your strengths.
I mean, this has been so insightful this afternoon, and we're just so grateful for your time and all the work that you put into all those quiz questions and everything else. Now, somebody who is listening, who has listened to us delve deep into our strengths and analyze it, how do they do this with you guys if they wanted to do the same?
They would just need to reach out through our website, probably. Is probably the best way. www.strengthssavvy.com. That's 2 S's in the middle. It's plural strengths. And there's a contact on the first page. There's contact at the bottom. And so they could reach out that way and engage with us. And we'll be happy to go through their strengths with them or do a session with their team, anything that, you know, our website spells it out. So it's a good starting point.
Awesome. I just think this would be so valuable for teams and partnerships and Even, like you have alluded to, Leanne, husbands and wives, parents and kids, it's just so valuable. And it just then spreads into the world, because once we have an understanding of it, we bring that understanding to every person we run into, I think.
It's so true. And when I'm coaching and somebody tells me about an issue they're having with someone, there was something that happened today, and I was like, oh, that person's high restorative. And so, these are the behaviors of someone who's high restorative, and that's just them being them, and it takes the edge off. That's the thing, is knowing the strengths. When you find out that people are just behaving as they were meant to behave, then it's not them really trying to, needle you. It's just them, in their strengths. And, sometimes our strengths can bug other people, so we regulate. And that's a good thing to do. And you can help people know when to regulate. If somebody's not regulated in your orbit, you can let them know, hey, it'll be more helpful if you come at me this way rather than that way. So those are things that are helpful. But I think it brings us to just a more harmonious world when we endeavor to understand ourselves and others. That's the keys. Those are the keys. That's what's really helpful with this.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate all the effort you put into making this so enlightening for us, and your time, and that you're sharing your strengths and your gifts with the world to bring this information. And we'll make sure and include your website in our show notes, so that if anybody's interested, and likewise, anybody that we work with, we love to talk strengths. So we'll be sending them your way if they want to do a group strengths assessment like this. This was really fun, and I loved the questions in the beginning. That was the best. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, it was really wonderful to be on twice. We feel so honored, and you two are just glorious to talk with. So we just love digging in and finding out more about the two of you, because the work you do is amazing and your partnership's amazing. And so all the best, love, peace, harmony, everything good to you all.
Awesome. You too.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yes, and listeners, we hope you found some encouragement. Know that we adore you and your strengths, and hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mentor Podcast. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
We adore our listeners. Connect with us at thementor.net.